time now for another one of the Vindicators candidate spotlights. I'm Russell Payne. This is Judge Michelle Merendino. We will get to her in just a moment. Let me run down some details for everybody. It's election season. Voters registration deadline is February the 2nd. If you're interested in voting this year's primaries, you need to get that done. Early voting runs February 17th through the 27th. Primary election day is Tuesday, March the 3rd. And of course, we'll have candidate forums, 2 of them for you. February the 11th at 6 p.m. will feature Congressional District 9, Senate District 3. The next night, Precinct 2 and 4 county commissioners, as well as the 75th and 253rd district judge races. Hopefully you'll be there with us. Those are both at 6 p.m. at the Dayton Community Center. And our election guide comes out on February the 12th in print and online for everyone to make an informed decision. So we're with the 75th District Judge, Michelle Merendino. You want to take the opportunity to introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself to folks?
Well, good afternoon. My name is Michelle Merendino. I'm so happy to be with you. I'm your judge of the 75th Judicial District Court. I was appointed August 15th by Governor Abbott, and I am honored to serve all of you in this capacity. We're working very hard to ensure that the people's business is done timely, fairly, firmly, and according to the law. And I'm excited to be here with you today, Russell.
Well, we're glad to have you. So tell me, you've been on the job 5 months? Mm-hmm. 5 months now.
Well, 4.5.
4.5.
4.5.
Was it what you expected it to be? And
so, as far as the courtroom work, it's very much what I expected. Mm-hmm. I've been in there for a quarter of a century almost. So I've just been on the other side of the table.
Right.
That portion of it is all that was expected. I was a little surprised at the volume of civil cases that we had. So that was a little different, just as far as volume. The work itself I was not surprised with, but the volume of it I was. But it's enjoyable. I'm enjoying learning something new. I mean, this is new. The temperament to be a judge is very different than the way you approach being a lawyer. When you're a lawyer, your responsibility is to present the facts of the case in the light most favorable to your client, irrespective of what the ultimate outcome is. Your job is to advocate for a client. When you're the judge, your position is to, and your responsibility is to seek justice, and I'm enjoying that tremendously.
Well, you come to this position, as you mentioned, by the appointment of Governor Abbott. That's a big endorsement for you. And what does that mean?
Honestly, it was humbling and an awesome responsibility, right? I mean, the governor of the state of Texas, along with his wonderful staff of very knowledgeable, very accomplished attorneys, went through our qualifications and then interviewed us, and then it's validating to see that your body of life's work meets the litmus test. But it's also very humbling to know that you have this responsibility and you don't want to let the people that you're serving down, and you don't want to let the governor down. I mean, oddly, liberty is not probably foremost in their mind, or at least wasn't until Colony Ridge and some of these other debacles. But the governor knows who you are and has a team that's monitoring your progress, so there's even added pressure.
What will be your constitutional responsibilities in this job, right? What is and how do you stand when it comes to that Constitution, right?
Well, I mean, are we talking United States Constitution, Texas Constitution, just the constitutional generally? Are you talking about the Bill of Rights?
Let's talk about your constitutional philosophy. How's that?
Well, I'm a strict constructionist. I believe that the Constitution means what it says. I more closely align with Scalia and Thomas than I do with Sotomayor or any of the others. That's why, I think if you have a broad scope philosophy where you think that the Constitution is a living document and is subject to the whims of whoever sits in a black robe on a bench, then that's a really powerful position. If you believe, like I do, that the position is to read the law, see what it says, see what the founders meant, what it says, see if it's statutory, what did our legislature mean, what did they say, it narrows your power, but it also is very broad line, and I believe that you should follow the judicial position is not one of, it should be dispassionate, and it should be administered in a way where you read the law and you try to ascertain through the proper rules of construction what the law is, and then you look at the facts and then you apply the law to the facts. I mean, it's what you learned 3 years of law school, and should be what you've been doing your entire practice.
Tell us more about your legal career, where your experience lies and what you're bringing to the table.
Well, you know, I'm a second career lawyer. So my original area of study, I have a Bachelor of Science in Accounting, and I did tax work, and I worked for what was Pace Entertainment, then became SFX Entertainment, then became Clear Channel Communications, and is now Live Nation. And my responsibilities there, I mean, we had international, multi-state venues, and so I read tax law and treaties and those things, and that I really thought I'd be a tax lawyer. I worked at Gardner Wynn, Sewell and Riggs for a while in their tax department in downtown Houston. And so I studied thinking I would dovetail into a tax practice. And ultimately, I've always lived in Hull. We raised our family here. My husband is from Hardin Jefferson, and I graduated from Hull Zeta. So, you know, I'm driving back and forth to Houston, and my children and my husband are here. And Jack's had just opened up right next door, and Judge Height was still not a judge yet. He had been elected, but was not yet on the bench. And there was a big sign in the window next door to Jack that said office space for rent. And so I walked in there on Monday morning and found out that there was office space for rent. And I took a $2,500 and I opened my practice. And I did whatever walked in the door. I did CPS, I did domestic relations law, I did estate planning, I did wills, trusts. I drafted a few deeds, and I started out in misdemeanor courts, and then shortly worked my way to felony criminal defense, and just ended up with a pretty thriving litigation practice. I would say I was one of the most prolific litigators in our county in the last 20 years for sure.
What's going to set you apart from your opponents? You've got 3 opponents in this race. What sets you apart?
Well, first of all, my experience. I mean, oddly enough, I've already had probably close to 40 hours of judicial training. Plus, I have had several jury trials, and by the time the election comes, I will have had my first capital murder jury trial. What sets me apart is you don't have to wonder how I will do the job. You can know how I've done the job. And so it is, if you're happy with the job that I'm doing, then you know what you're getting by virtue of my record. The other individuals running don't have a record to run on.
And how do you feel like you've done so far in that?
Well, I think we're doing great. I think my campaign put some numbers out today. I think I've almost disposed of 500 cases since October 1st. So that's pretty hefty.
The caseload. There's a backlog.
There is, and you know, people think that are you intimating that the prior judge didn't do the job properly? Absolutely not. Our judge, who was brilliant and did a wonderful job, had some things that came up that led to his retirement, and he was out. So we had visiting judges, and there just was no continuity in the bench for a period of, I would say, 18 months, maybe a little less than that. I mean, he was there, but he was...
Right.
And so we had a backlog. But the other thing is we just had a backlog because there are so many cases. I mean, we just have more cases filed now than we had before.
Are there any programs that you might want to look at adopting or implementing?
Well, you know, we have had this issue with overcapacity at the jail. I mean, we've had this issue, and it's costing the county a lot of money. And so you have to take a look at, and Judge Kane and I both have visited a little bit with some of the other people and stakeholders in this to try to figure out what are some ways that we could take some of the pressure off. And so we've looked at whether or not we could utilize a house arrest for nonviolent, low-level offenses, and how that might work with the GPS monitoring to ensure compliance. And those things are really in an investigative type stage. I mean, it's just difficult if you have offenders who, and of course people are innocent, their presumption of innocence is attached until they're convicted, but we have all these people, we put them, we have to set bonds for them, and it's just, the jail is just full. So but that's one thing that we've worked on. As far as programs, I would like for us to, I know we have a victims advocacy program, I would like to see us have a little more continuity with that. I mean, I think rather than a program, the primary focus I've had in the first 6 months of this is to try to develop a rapport with all of the other offices in the courthouse so that we are all able to trust one another and work together. We may not have the exact same philosophy on everything, but to know that we are all working to meet the needs of our public, which is number one, to get into court in a timely manner and to be able to have their case adjudicated properly. And I think we are all committed to doing the things necessary to get that done. I think we're moving in the right direction.
What else do you think that's a good idea, as far as what can a individual expect from you, on the bench?
What you can expect is for me to be on time, to be prepared, and to be honest. If you have an issue in your case, especially on these civil cases, these people come in on summary judgment. I've got 21 volumes of files. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything. If I need more time or I need a brief done to help me, I'm going to ask the questions so that we get it right.
What is the biggest role you're going to play in this county going forward if you're reelected? Like, where do you see yourself? We are a changing county, and that does, although technically you call balls and strikes, right? If you're on the bench.
Well, I think it's a leadership role, and I think, we've got our commissioners, we've got our judges, our district judges, our county court at law judges, our county judge, and we all have to have an appreciation for the environment that we're operating in and what the needs are today. We know, but we have to anticipate what the growing needs will be and understand that unfortunately, I don't think we're going back. I don't think we have been an agriculture community, a small population county for most of my life, but we are growing, and I don't believe anything's going to stymie that growth. And with that growth comes increased demands on your infrastructure, on your school district, and ultimately on your courthouse. We have more crime. We have more people getting divorced. We have more people fussing over probates, and we need to have a vision of what will come in the future. And I think that's why working together is so important, because together we can accomplish far more than if we're working at cross purposes. And I think that's really important. And as far as what role will I play, I will play the role of I would like to have an opportunity, if I'm elected, to be able to do some outreach, to do educational things, to have our youth more involved in our community, to really make people understand what goes on in your district courts. I mean, I think for far too long, our children really don't understand what even happens at that courthouse until they're faced with it. And a court can really affect your community. If the law is being, we see this in all these cities. In Minnesota, if you have a fundamental distrust of the institutions that are designed to keep the public safe and to keep things civilized, then you don't have a functional society or community. And I feel that we had the fortune of growing up in a community that was very safe and worked very well. And I would like to, as we grow, be a part of ensuring that our community remains safe, that we remain good neighbors, and that you know that you can count on the judges who are on the bench without fear or favor, irrespective of if you come from a poor community or your daddy is the most prestigious person in the whole community, that you will be treated fairly, with dignity and respect, and that your rights will be protected when you come into the court that I'm administering. That is the most important thing. I think being able to sleep at night knowing that I did the very best job that I could do, that I treated people properly, and that the values that I have that I believe are important are reflected in the way that I treat people and the way that I handle their business. And it's important to me that I don't ever act or conduct business in a way that dishonors the great trust that first our governor has placed in me, and that I believe that our public is going to place in me on March 3rd.
What weakness do you think maybe you have?
I think as a candidate, I have a really big weakness because I'm not a self-promoter. I don't. It makes me feel very awkward. I'm a perfectionist in many senses, and no one is perfect. No one is perfect. And to expect that from anyone creates some anxiety. So I think those are probably my two weakest things. I also don't like to stay up late.
I can understand that.
I'm an early bird. I get up with the chickens and go to bed with the chickens. And the younger people, it's harder to get out and about when you do the job all day and then you try to campaign. So that's been a challenge.
What challenges presented campaigning and being on the bench? I mean,
that's precisely what I'm talking about. I mean, I've got my judicial calendar, I've got my events calendar, I have things that are going on in the community, and on top of all of that, I have my family responsibilities, which encompass, as you're aware, I've got a child who is finishing up in college, but we also have Jared's parents who have had some health difficulties, and so we are challenged with ensuring that we help with their needs, with making sure they make their doctor's appointments. So it's just a balance, but I think that's what allows people to become successful, is knowing how to strike that balance between what your priorities are, where you spend your time, and accomplishing the things that need to be accomplished daily, prioritizing. And I think that skill is so important for this job because that's part of it. You have to be able to look at cases, understand what it takes to prosecute the case. And I think I'm the candidate with the most experience in every facet of these cases, who has to completion done these cases. So I understand what the flow is, I understand what the constraints are, and it enables me to prioritize the docket in a way that I don't think any of the other candidates would have that ability, because they just don't have the experience with the variety of cases and the firm understanding to be able to get those cases through the flow in the most efficient manner possible without sacrificing proper justice. And I think that's the challenge of this court, is to not treat it like a cattle call, to ensure that people are treated like individuals and that they know that their case is not just being shuffled through, that it's being purposefully looked at, carefully considered, because these are people's most important matters. And we cannot sacrifice ensuring that people know that they are going to be carefully considered just to get through with the cases. So that's a balance.
What's been the biggest challenge or surprise, I guess, maybe since you've taken the bench?
I think the biggest surprise is the prosecutor, from the time I was appointed to the time that I took the bench. The DA's office assigns prosecutors, and the chief prosecutor is now with Homeland Security prosecuting ICE cases in the feds, and so he's gone. He had the most experience, and who is now the chief is Kayla Hebert. She's out with a baby, so we've got new personnel in there, and they're doing a fantastic job. I can't say enough about what a great job that Mike Matthews and Zach Dickens are doing. And I think even Stephen is going to come upstairs and assist with the capital murder prosecution that we have. But I've been very, very satisfied with how helpful and willing to work they've been. So surprised, but not necessarily in a bad way, in a good way.
How can folks learn more about you and your campaign?
So I think the best way, if you want to learn about my campaign, is to go to Merendino for Judge, and it's all spelled out, MERENDINOFORJUDGE.com. Or you can just come up to the 75th Judicial District Court Monday, we will be picking a jury. Then we will also be picking a jury February 9th, and we will be picking another jury on, I believe, whatever that Monday is, the 26th, I believe, is the capital murder trial. So I think those are the most interesting things to watch. I mean, we are doing family law cases, and so that's somewhat interesting. I mean, a lot of this stuff the volume comes from pleas, right? And those are negotiated ahead of time. They're not all that interesting. I mean, you see what the dispositions are, but there's not really. Sometimes we have sentencing hearings. Sometimes we have motions or petitions to revoke probation. Those are interesting. Motions for summary judgment. I mean, some people find that interesting, but some people find that boring. I find it interesting, but it's I think probably the thing that most of the public would be interested in is the jury trials.
And it does not happen at the pace that Law and Order shows you.
This is the difficulty, and I will share with you. I was just very concerned. No cash bond is something that's on everyone's mind, and our governor spearheaded with the legislature setting some additional constraints through a constitutional amendment that we all voted on and went into effect in January, so that there are, upon proper findings, a handful of very violent offenses that, given the proper circumstances, we are not required to give them bond. But I think a lot of people don't understand. I mean, they do when they think about it, but it just doesn't come to mind immediately that why would a judge let someone out on bond when they did this terrible thing? Well, there's a presumption of innocence, and there's a constitutional requirement that we do that. And so we're not allowed to set a bond under an assumption that someone is guilty, or to just make it oppressive so that they can't get out. The bond is to ensure their presence in court. And there are statutory things that we're allowed to consider. And of course, we can set bonds high in appropriate circumstances, especially if they're repeat offenders or if it's a violent offense. And now we have this additional tool to be able to hold them without bond. But people don't understand, and they don't understand, why does it take so long? Well, in the case of drug cases, it's better now. I can remember a time, probably 8 or 10 years ago, when we were waiting up to a year for the labs to get the drug analysis. Well, the DA's office cannot indict without the drug analysis from the laboratory, so it's just sitting there. It's not even to the district court, because we don't have jurisdiction to adjudicate it unless it's been properly indicted, or unless the defendant chooses to waive that so that we can go forward with the case. So what we try to do, and this has been the practice of our courts since Judge Zabronic and Judge Kane, our current Judge Kane, I don't know before that, I suspect before that, but I know for certain that when people are arrested in our county, within 72 hours, they are brought either before him or before me, and they are evaluated to make sure that they have counsel, to make sure that PC has been turned in, to make sure that if they have a bond, that it's set, and now that bond conditions are set to ensure the public safety. And so in that instance, we're hopeful that the DA's office, if the agency will get the stuff turned in, and the defense counsel can get these things moving, but that's not always a guarantee. And as you can imagine, and anyone can imagine, it takes a little while. If you have a jury, it takes at least a morning to get a jury impaneled. And then it takes each witness, it takes significant time, and that's one case. I think I'm so proud. I think I'm down to, when I took the bench, I had like 1,600 and something cases, and I think I have maybe 1,300 now. So I've dug into some of the backlog. But imagine how long it would take if each one of those had to have a hearing or a trial.
That's right.
Fortunately, the majority of cases have some process, but they end up working out by agreement, whether it's civil or criminal. The parties and their lawyers craft a resolution. But when that is not able to happen, that is when they need the assistance of the court, and that is when they either have a jury trial or a bench trial.
Right.
So.
Well, real quick, just go back over some details for voting. Voters registration deadline is February the 2nd. Early voting is February 17th through the 27th. Primary election day is Tuesday, March the 3rd. CD9 and SD3 will have a candidates forum for those races on February 11th at 6 p.m. at the Dayton Community Center. Following night, same time, same community center. Precinct 2 and 4, 75th and 253rd District Judge candidates. We hope to have you there with us.
I will be there. I will be there. And Russell, I just want to say thank you very much for doing this. I know all the candidates, we've missed Shine All 9, and we appreciate that you're stepping in to fill in the gap so that our community can hear from us. And to those of you out here who have stayed with us this far, I appreciate your consideration. I'm honored to serve you, and I ask for your vote in the March 3rd Republican primary.